Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Mack Story.
Hello, and thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today. So today we're on episode 496. The title is Lessons in Servant Leadership from a Marine Hero. And I met this Marine hero when he was 82 years old, some time ago, actually 2013. Been a while. But I wrote about him in one of my books, Defining Influence, subtitle Increasing Your Influence, Increases Your Options. Chapter 7 in that book, I share some of the stuff I'm going to share with you today. And so let me tell you a little bit about this awesome Marine. At age 82, Medal of Honor recipient Colonel Wesley L still inspired crowds with stories of leaders who shaped him. None more than Corporal Myron J. Davis during the freezing nights of the Korean War. Facing demoralized troops, eating frozen rations in the dark, Corporal Davis invested in a Coleman stove and insisted on carrying it himself. Not for personal gain, but to ensure his squad could heat their food first. He passed it along without ever using it and always took the last, least desirable portions and rations that they had. Colonel Fox's simple yet profound takeaway was this right here. We knew he cared. I remember him saying that back in 2013. And that highlights how selfless acts demonstrate character and earn deep trust. Years later, which was in 2013, at the Blue Ridge Conference on Leadership, Colonel Fox's fist bump and connection showed me he lived these values, teaching that real leadership isn't about rank and perks. It's about serving those who you lead to build teams that endure any hardship. And I got a book signed from Colonel Fox when I was there. The title of the book is Marine Rifleman. Subtitle, 43 Years in the Corps. And it's pretty cool, and it's a simple signature he put in the book. It was October 9th, 2013. He says, to Corporal Mack Story. He wanted to know what my rank was when I was in the Marine Corps when I got out. I was in 87 to 91 in the infantry unit. And then he says, from one Marine to another, simplify, Wesley L. Fox. And I'll never forget meeting him. I mean, it's awesome to meet any Medal of Honor winner, but meeting Colonel Fox and hearing him speak and hearing his story that I'm going to share with you today, it was just powerful. And it's an example of the servant leadership principles that I teach and a lot of other people teach, how they work everywhere. I mean, this guy was a Marine. He started as a private, and he retired 43 years later as a colonel. He climbed through 7 ranks in the enlisted group, and then he climbed through 7 ranks in the officers group. So he knows a lot about leading and being led. And so before I get in deeper with this today's episode, I want to just kind of set the stage a little bit before I share his lesson, his story. So who you are matters. Without trust, there is no relationship. That's the title and subtitle of chapter 7 in my book, Defining Influence, that opens up the chapter where I shared this information. And that's where much of the information I share with you today is going to be coming from that chapter. Hope you go out and grab the book. If not, hope you enjoy today's episode where I'm sharing a little bit about what's in the book. And I opened that chapter with a quote from legendary basketball coach John Wooden. And he had this to say, be more concerned with your character than your reputation. Because your character is what you really are, while your reputation is merely what others think you are. That's some powerful words right there. Be more concerned with your character than your reputation. And I remember learning from Dr. Covey a long time ago when I was introduced to the 7 Habits and started listening and reading that book and hearing him speak and watching a lot of videos from him. And he talks about when things really changed in the United States was around World War II. Before World War II, we were kind of focused on how to actually be, about our character. And then we kind of shifted on how to appear to be, which is really, when you think about it in John Wooden's terms, is about your reputation. Character is how to actually be. Reputation is how to appear to be. And after World War II, we, for whatever reason, we shifted focus and really became a nation of people, with many people focused on how to appear to be instead of how to actually be. And you see kind of where that got us. So anybody who's speaking, teaching, trying to live out high impact leadership principles, we're trying to get back to the root of how to actually be. That's what everything that Rhea and I write about, speak about, talk about, is to help other people do. So trust is the foundation of influence, which, again, leadership is influence. If you're a new listener, you might not have heard that before. If you're a regular listener, you know I say it all the time. But leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less, is the quote from John Maxwell. That's how he says it. I believe it. Anybody who understands leadership, knows what he's speaking is a fact. It's the truth. So trust is the foundation of influence, or again, leadership. Our intent is the determining factor in whether we build trust or create distrust. When we attempt to influence others, if they don't feel valued, understand we are seeking mutual benefit, and believe there is a benefit for them, we'll not be able to create a foundation of trust to start growing and developing the relationship. They will distrust us and reject our influence. So Dr. Covey, author of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen R. Covey, his son, Stephen M.R. Covey, wrote an outstanding book. It's my 3rd favorite book, titled The Speed of Trust. And without trust, we have no authentic influence. We may have artificial influence that comes with our position, title, and rank, but we don't have the good kind of influence, authentic influence based on our character, who we are. So without trust, we have no authentic influence. Our influence will be based on how much trust we have built, how strong it is, and how long we have had it. The Speed of Trust that Stephen M.R. Covey, the son, wrote, again, it's in my top 5 favorite books. It's, like I said, number 3. And whenever I say that, a lot of people wonder, what's the other books? Especially if I say it's in my top 5, they will know what the other 4 is. So number 1, I've been reading every day for 18 years. Number 1 book has always remained the same. It's the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. My number 2 book, 5 Levels of Leadership by John Maxwell. Number 3, Speed of Trust by Stephen M.R. Covey, Dr. Covey's son. And then number 4, at the moment, Leadership and Self-Deception. And also the sequel to that book, I kind of include them together, even though there's 2 different books, but I kind of put them together at number 4, Leadership and Self-Deception and The Anatomy of Peace by the Arbinger Institute. And then rounding out my top 5 is The 8th Habit by Dr. Stephen R. Covey, author of the 7 Habits. So in my book, in the Defining Influence book, I actually listed 7 habits as number 1. And then number 3, the first 3 were still the same, 5 levels of leadership. I also had in there the 15 invaluable laws of growth and the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. But, they change as I read and I grow and I reflect and I read new books. And sometimes I read the old books over again. My list is changing, but the top 3 now, the 7 habits, 5 levels of leadership, speed of trust, those top 3 have kind of settled in, and I don't expect them to ever change. They'll probably stay that way, but there's still room for some to squeeze in, but they'll probably stay in that order and remain the top 3. But as I grow and change and continue to read and learn, my top 5 list seems to always be shifting and changing as well. However, those 7 habits has always remained at the top of my list. I believe they'll stay there, serving as the foundation for all the rest. If you truly learn and apply what's taught in the 5 books I shared with you as my current top 5 list, you'll take your life and your results to an entirely new level. And a lot of people, when I share about the books that I've read, they go to read them and they don't like them because they're big, they're thick, they make their head hurt, that kind of stuff. Go read my books. If you don't like that kind of big, thick, make your head hurt book, read my books, because what I've done is taken all the good stuff that I've ever read, all the good stuff I've learned and good experiences I've had, and I've reduced them down, made them simple. Most of my books are 30 chapters, 3 pages each, short paragraphs, simple words. People like to read them. Actually, people love to read them. So if you don't want to go dive into those thick books, you dive into my books and you'll get the same principles, just different stories, because I share my stories to teach the same principles. Nobody owns the principles. But numerous studies have revealed the majority, 87% of our results come from character-based traits, who we are, and only a small amount, 13% of our results come from our competency, what we know. Therefore, we should focus heavily on developing our character. And actually, the first research study, the one that's kind of the foundation of what I just shared, the 87-13 principles, what I call it, came from a research study back in 1918. And it was, I think, a survey actually conducted with 1,500 engineers. And their results provided the 87-13 principle, as I call it. If you want to truly develop your character and seriously grow and develop your influence, you must self-educate by studying leadership content, identifying leadership principles, and applying leadership principles in all areas of your life, personally, at home, and professionally at work. Character development matters. So I want to read you the inside cover from Colonel Wesley Fox's book, Marine Rifleman. As I'm about to share the story with you I was talking about earlier, but I want to just give you a little insight into who he is. So inside the book cover says, Life Lessons of a Gungy Marine. Legend has it that Colonel Wes Fox was born with a heart shaped like an eagle, globe, and anchor. This idea requires little imagination since it refers to one of the longest serving and most highly decorated Marines in the history of the U.S. Marine Corps. Intrigued by the mystique and the challenge of the Corps, 18-year-old Wes Fox enlisted in the summer of 1950, shortly after the outbreak of the Korean War. He saw action with the 1st Marine Division and was wounded in 1959. After Korea, Fox advanced steadily through the ranks and received his commission in 1966. While a rifle company commander with the 3rd Marine Division in 1969, he was twice wounded in a vicious battle during Operation Dewey Canyon. Early in this battle, every member of the company's command staff was either wounded or killed. In an all-or-nothing effort led by First Lieutenant Fox, his company repulsed the attack of a much larger enemy force and then counteracted with devastating results. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity, at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty, Fox received the Medal of Honor, which President Richard Nixon presented to him at the White House. Despite the personal sacrifice and frequent danger, Fox resolutely embraced the ethos of the Marine Corps, serving on active duty for 43 years, risking his life on numerous occasions, and emerging as a true leader in one of the most respected and feared fighting organizations in the world. Readers interested in U.S. military history in the second half of the 20th century, the Marine Corps, and inspiring tales of personal achievement will find plenty of each in Colonel Fox's extraordinary memoir. That's a hard word for me to say. Inside, he says, to my wife and mother, they stayed home and worried for my life every single day while I was off doing my Marine thing, though most of those days were an enjoyable walk in the sun. And to all the Marines who have lost their lives while serving their country. So that's who he dedicated the book to. So let's go back to 2013, October 9th, 2013. While at the Blue Ridge Conference on Leadership, I had the opportunity to hear Colonel Wesley Fox United States Marine Corps, retired, speak one evening. As a former member of the United States Marine Corps, hearing him speak was a special opportunity for me. He had joined as a private, as I mentioned, served in the Marine Corps 43 years, retired as a colonel, and again is a Medal of Honor recipient. And at the time, 2013, he was 82 years old, and he was still out there making things happen, telling his story, inspiring other people to embrace leadership at a higher level. Colonel Fox told several stories about different leaders who made an impact on him during his career. He talked about Corporal Myron J. Davis the most. And, you know, when he was a colonel, but when he's talking about the corporal, he was a lesser rank than the corporal. So the corporal was his leader at the time. This was when he was early in his Marine Corps career, Colonel Fox. So Corporal Davis was his leader. So Colonel Fox may have been a private or a private first class. He could have even been a corporal, and this corporal could have been his leader. I can't remember that, but I think actually I'm looking in my book and referencing that he was a private first class. So he was an E2, and the corporal at that time was an E3. Later on, the Marine Corps added, I think it's 1958, they added Lance Corporal as an E3. So they put between private first class and corporal, they inserted a Lance Corporal, which is what current times is an E3. But back these days, at the time of this story, the corporal was an E3. So Davis was Colonel Fox's squad leader. But again, during his first experience in live combat during the Korean War, while Colonel Fox was still a private first class at that time. So that's what, as I tell the story, you got to remember, I'm going to be saying Colonel Fox, but he was a private during this story that he's telling, a private first class, PFC. So Colonel Fox mentioned he trusted Corporal Davis tremendously, as much as any other leader he had during his 43-year career in the Marine Corps. The colonel shared why his trust in Davis was so strong. Think of this, 43 years in the Marine Corps, Medal of Honor winner, the leader that he remembers the most and that stood out to him the most in his 43-year career was a corporal when he was only a PFC. Colonel Fox said, "We knew he cared for us." This is a Marine's Marine saying the greatest leader he ever had, this is what made him the greatest leader. We knew he cared for us. In those days, the Marines ate their food out of cans. Colonel Fox remarked, this is a quote from him right here. I'll let you know when I'm done quoting him. Colonel Fox remarked during that speech, he says, "It was so cold, everything was frozen, including our food. We were demoralized because we had no way of safely warming our food. Therefore, we had to chisel what we wanted to eat from the cans with our bayonets. We only had time to eat at night when we were not in the heat of battle. In the dark, we could not build fires to keep warm or heat food without exposing our location to the enemy. It's always better to chisel your food from a can in the freezing cold with a bayonet than to be killed eating it with a spoon by a nice warm fire." End quote. And I like that line right there at the end. I'm going to repeat it again. It's always better to chisel your food from a can in the freezing cold with a bayonet than to be killed eating it with a spoon by a nice warm fire. All right. According to Colonel Fox, again, PFC, private first class, E2 at the time, Corporal Davis realized the impact this was having on the Marines' morale. So he bought them, meaning his squad, a Coleman cooking stove to heat their food. He bought this out of his own money. Colonel Fox continued, and again, this is a long quote from Colonel Fox. He says, "Corporal Davis always insisted on carrying the stove himself and would never allow another Marine to carry it. He didn't carry it in order to be the first to get it, to be the first to get to use it, because I never saw him use the stove. Davis always passed it straight to the other Marines, and it never made it back to him until it was time to move out. Another thing Davis always did was let the other Marines in his squad pick their meals ahead of him each day. He would always take what was left, which was always corned beef hash. End quote. That's pretty powerful right there. He's saying that corporal, that leader, insisted on carrying the stove, extra weight, extra hassle. And he never allowed other Marines to carry it. He could have told somebody to carry it. He was the boss. And he didn't carry it in order to be the first one to get to use it. Colonel Fox said he never saw him use the stove. This is high impact leadership in the Marine Corps, in an environment of command and control. And again, I was in the Marine Corps. I know the best leaders were not dictators. They were the kind of leaders I talk about and write about all the time. Anybody who is a high impact leader knows that exact thing. Bosses, dictators, weak, low impact leaders, they don't have a clue. But everybody else does. So I do what I do to try to motivate and inspire people who want to lead at a higher level to climb that mountain, that leadership mountain, or people who are not in a formal leadership position to become the kind of leader people want to follow. That's why I do what I do. Because I'm telling you, I know the world needs more people like Corporal Davis and also Colonel Fox. So Fox said he hoped the corporal liked the corned beef hash because it was all Davis ever got. With people, the little things are the big things. You see, they had opened up them sea rats in the cans, and they had all different kinds of food. Most people didn't like the corned beef hash. And what he's saying, Corporal Davis would let everybody else in his team pick what they wanted to eat first, and he took whatever was left. That's leadership. That's sacrifice. Stop and think about this. When someone cares for you, what does it communicate about their intent? Do they build trust or create distrust? Do they have more or less influence? No doubt they're going to have more influence and they're going to build trust. Colonel Fox closed his remarks by saying, there is not one university in the United States offering a 4-year degree on leadership. There should be. That was his quote at the very end. Colonel Fox, back in 2013, at 82 years old, was still wielding his influence, still serving his country, and still raising up leaders. He could have been sitting at the house with a nice retirement, which he already had at 82 years old, but he was still out serving. I'm glad I had the opportunity to meet him. We shook hands a few times, but what I remember most about our interaction before he went on stage, was the fist bump he gave me. I was sitting beside him in the crowd as he was waiting to go up. That was just awesome. When they called him up, he turned to me and gave me a fist bump, and he went up there and he tore it up. It was awesome. I'll never forget him. And just an awesome individual, awesome human being. He was there to do more than communicate, though. He was also intentionally connecting. He's a Marine's Marine, and I should say he was. He passed away now, but during his career, he was a Marine's Marine. Even beyond his career, into retirement, he was a special man, a true hero. And in my book, I say thank you for your service, Colonel Fox. And maybe he's up there listening. Maybe he's smiling hearing me share this story about him. Even after he's gone, his influence continues. That's what high impact leaders do. They have influence beyond their presence, even beyond death. That's how you know someone was a high impact leader. Again, influence can also be positive or negative. With Colonel Fox, it was 100% positive. And I'm also not aware at this moment, maybe there is now, but I'm not aware of a 4-year leadership degree from a university. There are plenty of courses offered by colleges and other institutions on leadership. There's a lot of that. However, if you truly want to develop your leadership potential, the quickest, least expensive, and easiest way to do it is to start reading leadership books and applying what you're learning. I don't care if they offered a PhD in leadership. If that's all you got is going to college, going through the classes, passing the test, that ain't got nothing to do with leadership. That's got something to do with retaining information and giving it back. It doesn't matter what kind of degree or teaching or whatever you get, how many books you read, the podcasts you listen to, until you can apply it into your life methodically and intentionally, those leadership principles, you ain't a leader. You may not receive an official PhD in leadership from a university, but that shouldn't stop you from receiving a PhD in results from society. That's what you want right there. You want a PhD in results. Rhea and I spoke in one company at one time. We went in there and the leader was moaning, groaning, whining about their team and couldn't figure out what the problem was. And at some point in that conversation, kind of upset, that leader told me about their leadership degree. It wasn't meaning much in that moment, I promise you, because that person was struggling. And that's because a leadership degree has zero to do with leading. It's all about your character, not your degrees. As Colonel Fox explained to us, a quote from him right here, sincerely caring for others is one of the most important building blocks of trust. That's a powerful quote. It is directly tied to our intent. Most of our influence comes from our character. The more we develop our character, the more useful we become to others. When we intentionally develop our character, we automatically increase our influence with those who are aligned with positive, character-based values. When it comes to character, remember this: if you fake it, you won't make it. You can see right through someone faking it when it comes to caring for you. Others can do the same when it comes to you caring for them. Character is key. Who you are matters. Hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you want to get the full story, check out Marine Rifleman by Colonel Wesley L. Fox. And he's got 14 chapters in there. And each one is about the rank he held. He held 14 different ranks as he grew his 43-year career from private to colonel. So there's a chapter on every one of the ranks he held during his 43 years, 14 different ranks, positions that he was in. So I encourage you, if you want to learn who this man was, check out that book. If not, tell this story, tell his story about Corporal Davis. If you're a leader of other people, share this story. Share this episode with them. All right. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mack Story's Blue Collar Leadership series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mack's books, programs, special offers, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.